So guys, we totally forgot to do everything for our relationship. And when I click on this, you're going to see the results, but on my screen, but on your own, you are not going to see anything. And the way we can fix that is to simply come over to our create message, and we can add a foreign key and constrain that to users. So this constraint is going to constrain it to users, and we also have a cascade that's going to update whether we update or delete it. So that's just what we added over here. So you can just go ahead and add that on your create message. Then on your messages, we are going to add a foreign key, and we are using a user ID. Right here, we are using a user ID foreign key. And when we run our migration, so let me just go ahead and run our migration again. When we run our migration and go to our database and check, in messages, you're going to see a new user ID, which is being added over there. So that's what we're going to be using to constrain that to our users. And then in our users, we have has many, which is already a relationship to messages. So what I'm simply going to do now is to go to create a new user. I'm going to create 2 users ASAP. So let me just go ahead and do that. I'm going to create 2 users. So this one is user 1, and I'm going to run that. It's going to create that user. And then we also have to create our previous user, which is Sam. I'm going to change the name to Samuel. And as well, I'm going to change this to Sam. Let me just use Samuel as well. So we have 2 users created right now. 2 users created right now, and we can see we have their respective ID, and that ID is what we're going to be using for the relationship. Then inside our messages, let's just quickly go to our message mutator. Right here, we're going to be attaching the user ID. Let's say the current user that is trying to send a message, we're going to grab the ID. So let's just put a number for now. I just added a number. So let's say I added this user 1 over here. So let's say user 1 is the one that is about to send a message, which is user1@gmail.com. I'm going to quickly send a message with user 1. So I'm going to copy this, and then we can just go ahead and paste that. So the person that is sending is user 1, and user 1 is going to send this message. And please don't forget to save. I think I didn't save yet. Okay, I did. Then when we go over to our messages, you could see we have the user. When I click on this, you can see the relationship. So this is attached to user 1, and you can see on the database, you can see we have the user 1 over there. So then when we click on, let's use the load message mutation once more. I'm going to copy all these, and I'm going to paste that. So when I paste it, you can see definitely we are getting back the user that just sent that message. So that user is going to be the sender, whether it's user 1 or user 2. I'm just using user 1 over here. That's why it's user 1. So let's say if I use user 2, when I'm sending a fresh message, it's going to be a user 2. So let's say the person that is sending it's user 1, and the person that is receiving is Sam. And we all know that user 1 is 1. So we save that, and once we save that and we try to get back, try to load all the messages, we get 2 messages. You could see we have just user 1. I could have used like user 2, but at least you understand the place we are now. So with relationship, we can have access to user inside a message object. So that's just a simple thing I just quickly want to fix. Now let's go over to the client side. We're going to be working with React.js. Of course, we all know that we are using React.js in this tutorial. I'm going to quickly come over and click on Visual Studio Code. I'm going to click on the resources folder and click on JS component auth folder. And right here, you could see we do have the login file and also the register file. Initially I didn't create this register file. Just go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on register, and first of all, we are going to start off with registration. Right here you could see this default boilerplate I added. You can always get it from the readme. So click on the readme section of this tutorial, on the description, then go to the boilerplate or the free template, then click on the readme section. You're gonna get all these codes. So I added a lot of codes over there. I added the registration and also the login. So for now we are dealing with the registration. So just go ahead and click on it and copy everything and paste that right into your register components. And the first thing I'm going to do is to import a type at the top here. So I'm going to import from the store. I have actions/types. I'm going to import the store user info. Let me just name these actions, comment that actions I mean. So I want to make sure everything is correct. And then in the components right here, we're going to grab the history. So because we're going to be moving to the inbox, we are going to be moving to the inbox when we are done registration or moving to the login. So we have to do that with the history. So just bring it from the destructuring. So this is history. And I'm going to import some couple of other things. We have to import from Apollo client, and also we have to import from Redux. So just go ahead and put down React Redux. And for the Apollo client, we are going to be working with the GQL and also the use mutation. So this use mutation is going to help us to actually make use of our mutations from our back end. So that's just what we are going to be using. So if you check here, you could see we are using mutations over here. So this is exactly what we are going to be doing, but we are going to be doing that on the client side. I'm going to import use dispatch, because this use dispatch is going to be used to dispatch information to the store. Then right here we have the dispatch, which is going to use dispatch. And then we have our state values. So don't get confused. State values are like the name, email address, password, and also the username. And if you check in our form right here, it does have all those things. So let's just put it down. Then we can visit this register component on our browser. So I'm going to bring in the email. So we have the set email. Then for the use state, I think I have not yet imported that, so that's why we are going to import the use state from React. So these are just React hooks. So we have the use state components, and we have to copy this down a little times. Then we have the name. Right here we have the password. We have the username. So we have name, username, name, email, or let's say name, email, username, password, and one more, we do have the error message. And for this one I have the set name. For this one I have the set email. I have the set username. I have the set password, and lastly I have the set error. And for each of these we are just going to add empty values to them. So if I even proceed to go ahead and work on this registration component, if we kind of visit our home page, you could see our home page, there is nothing that is showing right now, so it's just showing an empty screen. And we can just go ahead and make sure that our links are working and also displaying effectively in our browser. I'm going to click on the app.js component over here, And you can see in the app.js component, we just have only one route, and that is the homepage route. Right here, we are getting an error, and I don't know why. We just have Instagram.test. So let me try to work on that and fix it. I'm going to click on routes. On the routes folder, we can click on web. And right here, okay, that's the problem. I forgot to just remove that any. So initially, this is supposed to just show us the login component, which is just this is login. So we wanna make sure that every incoming request is going to be hitting on the home page, which is going to now use our static files from our React.js application. So I'm just gonna put any, and right here I'm gonna say where any. I think I'm getting it right. So this makes it possible that any route, because if we don't add, let me just give you a clear example of what I mean. If I don't add any there, and if I visit something like register, it's going to show us a 404 page showing us that the link doesn't exist. But if we do add any, and also make sure that any, which is where any, it's any link, it's going to actually redirect all the incoming routes to our React.js application, and we should actually get a result. And this, it's any. So any, it's supposed to come here, and let me just bring out the register component and make sure it's imported. It's uncommented, I mean. Yes, it's correct. And this time around, let's refresh. So we can possibly see something here, and we should. It says quantifier does not follow a repeatable. I think I didn't do this correctly. So this dot is supposed to come before the asterisk, and let me just refresh, and that solves it. Okay, we have our component over there, but nothing is being displayed. I don't know for some. Okay, I just have to hard reload or clear the cache, and it's refreshing and also showing us some things on the registration. I'm going to click on the register, and let's come back and continue. I'm going to create a method called onSubmit, and here we have the event, and we have to use e.prevent default. And down here we do have a form where we can add that event. So we on React.js we can do something like onSubmit equals to onSubmit, but what I'm just gonna do is to use the spread operator, and I can just pass that onSubmit, and it's going to actually use the method we just created. Then inside here, inside our inputs, we have on change. Whenever the values are changed, we have to get the values, so we can set email e.target.value. I'm going to quickly copy that and paste on this, and also paste it on this one. So this one is the name. Right here we can use set name. Then we have the set username. We also have the set password. Then for the submit, there's nothing we are going to pass there because we already have something that prevents the event from reloading the page. So let's just go ahead and save. Right now, whenever we click on submit, let me just go ahead and console.log submitted, something like submitted. So whenever we go ahead and click on this submit, and right away when I click on register, we should definitely see submitted. Okay, I did clear that mistakenly, and it's working fine whether we did clear it or not. But for the tutorial's sake, let me just refresh and show you. So when I click here, you can see we have submitted being on the console.log section. So it's just being consoled over there and nothing more. Then the next thing we have to do is to make sure that when we click on submit, after we put in our email address and all the full details, we should use the GraphQL mutation, one of the mutations on the README file. Then we can actually use that to register a user, and the user is going to be stored on our database. And what I'm going to do is to go back to the register components, and above here I'm going to bring in the register. Let me just bring it below, that will be best. Let's say bring in the register mutation, which is very simple. I'm going to call it register user mutation. That will be best, which is going to use the GQL. So the GQL is already connected to our own server. I think I didn't actually explain that, but we use this GQL to make use of our mutations. And then inside our GQL, we can bring in the mutation. And right here, the mutation is going to accept let's say the arguments that we're going to be passing to our register user mutation. So what are these values? We have the email address, which is a string, and that's mandatory. So let me just break this down. Then we have the name and the others. So we have the name, we have also the password, we also have the username. Then inside here, we're going to bring in the register user mutation. So inside the register user mutation, we can then pass all these as well. So let me just go ahead and copy all this without wasting time and paste that. So that's one good thing about using Vim. And of course, we already know that it's a string, name, password, and all those things. But right here, we just have to map them to these values. So we have email as okay, let's do it this way quickly. Let me just quickly do it this way. We already have the values as $email, $name. So we're not gonna repeat that. So what we just simply do is to give them their responsive key holders. So we have the password as well, we have the name, and lastly we have the email. So these are the values that we're going to be passing through the arguments, and we're going to map the name email to the email, name to name, and all those things. So you can see when I double click on this, it still highlights it. So that's it. And the way we can make use of this is to now use our register mutation in our application. But mind you, if we check in our README, we can see that in this register we do have some payload that we're going to return from the request or from the response. So we also have to make sure we put them down. So we have the user remember token and all those things. I'm just going to copy that and quickly paste it. That's one thing I don't like about GraphQL sometimes. Formatting this automatically is something they should do. So it's not bad, it's not looking bad, and we've added every other thing that is necessary. So in the register, you can see we have the username, the user, which is going to return the name, email, and also the username. Then we have the remember token and other details. So to use that, so we just created that mutation. To use the mutation, let's say use the register mutation. We're gonna quickly use mutation, and then we have the register user mutation, and right here we have the register user. So this is gonna be the function name, or just whatever name you want to give here, just put it, but just note that this is what you're gonna be using to register the user. So we have the function name, and then we have the register data. So you can call it data or anything you want to do. Just know that this returns data, and this is what you use to trigger the action. And whenever we submit, I want to quickly register the user. So we have the variables. So pardon me for just going straight to the point. Like I will always say, this is not a GraphQL special tutorial. Maybe later on when I do that video, I'm going to explain how to use all this. So we just have the variables, which are the emails, the names, the passwords, and also the usernames. So that's just simply what we are doing. So right now, let's just go ahead and refresh. If everything is working perfectly, we shouldn't get an error, but if we do get an error, we should see it on the console section. So right here, we don't have an error, and I'm going to try to register a user. So let's say user1, and I'm going to call it user1, and the username is user1, and the password is Samuel. I'm going to come to our database. I'm going to empty all the users. I don't want a user there. So I think we shouldn't have any user. Okay, let me just go ahead and delete these users. I think that would be the best. And I'm going to register the user. And it says register user is not defined. Something is not defined. That is this register user is not defined. So sorry for that. And let's try again. We have the user1. We have the user1 as the username and also the password. And then let's register. And if everything worked perfectly, we should see this user in our database. We didn't get any user yet, and we didn't get any error. And okay, it's working perfectly. So right here you could see we are getting to register a user, and if I go ahead and register, let's say user 3 or user 2, and I register user 2 and then use the same password, let's click on users again, and you can see user 2, and we also have user 3. So this is user 3 as well. And then we have user 3 and the same password, and click on register and click on the users table. You can see user 3. So we can register our users right now from right here. So the next thing we have to do is whenever we register a user, we have to make use of the user data, or the data that is being returned from these responses or from this scaffold over here. So what we can simply do is make use of the user data and extract those information. So sorry, the register data I mean. And beneath here, I can say extract register data. So we have the use effects. And I want to watch out for the register data. I'm not going to use the return. So the return is what happens whenever you close or leave that current component, or leave the current route that has that particular component. So from here, we are going to have access to the register data. Then inside the register data, we do have what is called data. Then we have to make sure that there is a data that is being returned. If there is a data, there are some other destructuring that we have to do from the data. So from the data, we are going to have access to register a user from the current mutation. Then in the current mutation, we have registered. We can now extract our data, registered and error data. Then we can dispatch to store the user info. So the current user that just registered, we want to store that user in our state. So what I can do is to use a type of store user info, and I'm going to use a payload of data.register user. So data.register user do have all this information right here. So all this information, the user, remember token, registered, and also the error message, it does have everything. So we just dispatch that to store user. And then next thing we can do is to set an error in case we do have an error. So you can say if, or let's just say set error. Then we can say if an error data, we just want to set error. Remember the error state values. So we have error data dot message, and then we also have redirect after login. After registration, not login. So what we can do here is, if the registered is actually true, remember that the registered is a boolean, and if we check here, you can see we have the registered here, which is actually a boolean. Let's check in our GraphQL schema, and right here you can see we have the registered, which is a boolean. If it is true, all we simply want to do is to clear any error. Then after clearing the error, I just want to return. We can now use the history.push, and we are going to push a route to the stack so that we can actually leave this current route. Or you can use something like window.location.redirect, depending on your choice, but it's not bad. And I can just go ahead and refresh. So if everything works fine, when we register a new user, let's say user 4, we ought to see a redirect. We are getting an error because we don't have use effect imported. I will save that and refresh. The refresh is done. So let's say user 4. Do we have user 4 here? No. So let's call that user 4, and let's say username is user 4, and let's use the same password and register. And you can see everything went perfectly, because once we were able to register, we just got redirected to the inbox without wasting of our time. So that's exactly what we did here. We didn't even want to waste time. We just came to a route called inbox. We don't yet have that route. That's why we can only see an empty screen. But if we check inside our table, we should actually see user 4 over here. So you can see we have user 4 and we have other users as well. So even if I go ahead and clear or empty all the users, cannot truncate a reference. I think it's because of the foreign key, something like that, but it's not an issue. We're going to find a way to fix that. So even if I go ahead and clear all the users, I can always register a new user, and it's gonna redirect us to the inbox. So before we work on the login, one thing I forgot to do is to add the error message. So for error message, we remember we do have an error message there, so we have to check in case if it does have a value or there is no value, then we have to just return a null. So I'm just going to put down the div class or the div elements, and then put the class name, and I'm going to call this class name error message. So these are already there for you in the CSS. So we can just put down our error message, because right here we are already setting the error in case we do have any error. And let's say I try to register user 4 twice and put user 4, and I think it won't work because I have not yet done a refresh. It shouldn't work at all because we don't yet have a refresh. And let's paste that and use user 4 once more, and then use our username, our password. Actually, we are supposed to be getting an error because we shouldn't be able to register user 4 twice. So right here you can see we have sorry email exit. Okay, I wasn't patient enough to see that. So you can see sorry email exit. So whenever we do have an error, let's say this is not the login section. Let's go ahead and work on the login section because I was just carried away. I'm going to click on login file. Then for the login, I'm going to come over to the readme and I'll quickly come down. You can see the login HTML codes. So just go ahead and grab that. So this one is already less stressful because we already have the on click over there. Sorry, on change I mean. I'm going to copy everything and paste it. So definitely we should get an error because we don't yet have all this. So what I'm going to do is, before I save, I just quickly come at the top here. I'm going to bring in the dispatch, which is going to use the dispatch. Then we have to bring in our state values. Then here we have email. Then we have set email, which is going to use state. So let's make sure use state is imported at the top. And also we have the use effect. That's it. Then right here we have the password, which is going to use the set password. And then we have the use state. And please don't forget to put the empty values. So let me not stress it out. Let me just copy this, and we have the error message, which is going to have the set error message, or let's say set error. So that's it. And we also have to add the submit. So this one is on submit. It's a function, and we have the event, which is going to prevent the default action of that event to refresh the page. So we have prevent defaults. And in case we do scroll down, we should actually see on submit over there. And that's why I say this one is less stressful, like the registration. So just click on the readme file of the free template. You're gonna see that. So let's go ahead and save, and let's come over to the home page. The home page should render the login component for us, so we don't even have to visit the login component for that. And here we do have an error, which is a minor error. We just simply have to import the GraphQL and also the state, the use dispatch from the Redux I mean. So I'm going to import two things from Apollo clients. So let me just allow the AI to help me. Oh no. So let me select that. Oh, sorry guys. And also the React Redux. Then right here we have use dispatch. Over here as well we have the GQL and also the use mutation. I'm going to import the actions I mean. So we can import from the store actions types. So what I'm simply importing here is store user info. So let me make sure it's correct. It's declarable never. Okay, it's okay. I want to make sure that this is correct. Okay, this time around is fine. And let's refresh the home page once more, which is going to render the login component. And let's see if everything is fine and also everything is correct. So it says we don't have a link, and that link is coming from I don't know where the link is coming from here. Okay guys, sorry I forgot to import that at the top. We can just import from React router DOM. Can import the link. Hopefully this time around we shouldn't get any problem again. So that should solve it, and that solved it. So right here we have the login component, and when we click on this, nothing is happening because We use the event preventer to prevent a reload and also a submission. So the next thing to do now is to create the login mutation like the way we did for our registration. And beneath here, I'm going to put in login user graph, or let me just say login user mutation, not to confuse or complicate things. So I'm gonna call it login user mutation. Then we have to use the GQL. So inside here, as usual, we have the mutation. So we have mutation, and right here we can say that there are some values that our mutation will only be accepting, and these are just email address, which is a type of string, and also we do have the password, which is also a type of string and is mandated. And then inside here we can now bring in our mutation, which is login user. So for the email, we have the email address, and then for the password, we have the password. So whenever we are done logging in, we always return the user, which is going to have the name, the email, and also the username. And then we can remember the token. We can have a remember token. We can also have a boolean value of logged in, and as well an error data which has a message inside of it. So that's it for the login mutation. And the way we can use that as well is to make use of the use mutation that we imported. So let me just quickly do that. So this is not supposed to be inside of here. Let me grab that out. This is supposed to be at the top here, outside. Okay. I think I also made a mistake on registration. Let me check. Actually worked fine, but normally I don't use it that way. I do use it outside. But anyways, whether you put it outside or didn't put it outside, I think it doesn't matter. But normally I do put it outside so that we don't encounter any error. But right here is showing perfectly, so I don't think it's a problem. So let's say use login mutation. So right here we have to use mutation. So inside here we have the load user mutation, and make sure okay, sorry, not load user, login user, not load user. The load user mutation is what we're gonna do next, so I just keep that on my brain. And inside here, whenever we click on submit, we now have to make use of that mutation and submit that user. So let's say we have to use the login, and we have to pass the variables, which is the email and also the password. So the email and password is coming from our state values, and our login user is coming from our mutation. This is login user, and also we have the login user data. Now whenever we log in, we have to redirect that user to the inbox component as well, or the inbox route. What I can do here is to say we can check if the user is logged in from login user data. So we can make use of the use effect to watch for the login user data. And right here we have a callback. Then we can extract some things from the login user data.